Hello and welcome to Media Lit, where we treat each piece of media like great literature. I'm your host, Randy Elaine, and joining me as always is my buddy, my partner in crime. It's Chris Ingersoll. Chris, how you doing tonight?
So good, Randy. And right now, tonight, I'm so good, not just because I'm stoked about the draft we have ahead, but this is also our second of three podcasts we're going to do together this week. It's a
Mm-hmm.
fantastic week, and I'm doing quite well because of it. But you were at Six Flags all day today. How are you, bud?
I'm surviving. My son took me 400 feet in the air on some swings. That was not necessarily a thrill ride, but that was the scariest one for me. But I thought of you. I sent you a photo from the Batman roller coaster. I'm a little bit bummed you don't have your bat signal lit at the moment. That's often on the wall behind you. There we go. I knew it had to be there somewhere. Yeah. So for folks at home, Chris does keep that bat signal lit. He just gave us the receipts to prove it. So life is good. Yeah. So Chris, yeah, we're podcasting on the Nostalgium Arcanum pod. We did a guest spot earlier this week talking about The Land Before Time, a childhood classic. So we'll be excited to share that with all of you when it comes out.
I'm still reeling from that rewatch.
Even more depressing than I remembered. Uh,
Yes.
but a very moving and valuable experience for me. But Chris, I'm excited because not only is this a week of podcasting, but I'm going to call this Hot Draft Summer because we just agreed to take part in a very extensive Batman draft on the Batman by the Numbers podcast later this month. So we've got that in our future. I've been planning a wildly convoluted set of podcasts for the 10-year anniversary of the first season of Lost. I'm sorry, the 20-year anniversary. I misspoke. So we're going to be drafting a sequel for Lost that probably shouldn't happen, but we're going to do it anyway because that's what podcasts are for. But most importantly, we're going to kick things off tonight with a project that is near and dear to my heart, and that is a classic television draft. I, for one, was raised on Nick at Night, especially on programs of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's certainly a programming block that, evolved and adapted over time. But for me, it's always going to be about those 50s, 60s, and 70s sitcoms. And we're about to kick off summer. So we are focused on Nick at Night's Block Party Summer programming block. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into that in a minute. I've got a whole mini history to share with you. But first, Chris, could you start the process of introducing our lovely panel of guests?
I am so glad I get to go first because I'm especially excited to introduce our very own mogul of the theater world, the math wizard himself, and your older cousin, Neil,
Mm-hmm.
my dear new podcasting pal. Neil Martin is with us tonight to wow us with his drafting prowess. Welcome back, Neil.
Oh, shucks. Thank you, Chris. I can't ask for a more kind and gentle intro. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And our first recurring guest on the podcast as well.
Right.
So another exciting accolade. Next up, I'm going to introduce my good pal, Maria. She is a really talented writer, baker, and everything else. Really cool, smart person. And she was kind enough to join us for this classic TV draft. How you doing tonight, Maria?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. I love classic TV, so this is right up my alley. Thank you for having me.
Excellent, excellent. And I was even able to track down one more pal, this time from college. This is my buddy Stevie. She is someone who was kind enough to stay up into the wee hours of the morning talking about books, television, and film with me back when we were in college. We both became English teachers. She's currently over on the West Coast teaching. and she managed to block out some time for us to talk classic television. Stevie, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about it, plan out our block party. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. So we are here tonight to talk about classic television. As I mentioned earlier, Nick at Night was one of the most important programming blocks for me as a child for several reasons. The most important reason is, as we've recounted several times on this podcast, I had a lot of parental involvement in what I was allowed to watch as a child. And Nick at Night was more or less granted blanket approval from my parents. It was something we often watched and shared together, but it was something that superseded that. Um, but it also, I think, became a little bit of a part of my identity. I think I kind of took ownership of the fact that I knew more about, say the Mary Tyler Moore show than I did about what was happening on Saved by the Bell, which was not necessarily the norm for people in my peer group. And that became a part of who I am. And listen, I'm a teacher now. I am on summer vacation, and I can't think of summer vacation without thinking of the block party summer Nick at Night promos. So if anyone's not sure what I'm talking about, I'm just going to play a sample promo from this time period.
Hungry for some classic TV? Sure! Well, Nick at Night's Block Party Summer is serving up big, zesty 6-episode blocks of classic TV, back-to-back, and in their original order. Blocks so thick you can watch them with a fork. Monster Mondays, Lucy Tuesdays, Bewitched Be Wednesdays, Genie Thursdays, and Cotter Fridays. Don't miss this rare opportunity to enjoy well-done shows on your favorite medium, television.
Pretty clever, eh, Mr. Cotter?
Nick at Night's Block Party Summer, every weeknight all summer long.
All right, folks. I just need to ask really quickly if this awoke any latent memories for anyone on the panel.
Dude, that hit me in a place that I haven't been in a long time. Deep in here. That brought me right back.
Yeah, same. Just like, I don't know. I can like hear it in the back of my head. Like I remember it pretty clearly. And it's weird, like when you see something so nostalgic and you're just like, oh, I think I had this memorized weirdly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the main thing I want to point out is what was unique about Block Party Summer is that this was a week of programming. They were basically giving us binge watching before binge watching existed, right? So you got 6 episodes back to back to back in the original order of a different show, Monday through Friday. That really built an addiction for me. It built shared memories with my sisters, with my parents. That was a really valuable thing. Little did I know, Netflix would be coming down the line before I knew it. Binging would become a part of my life. But this little mini version, I think, is important. And those blocks are what we are going to try to develop here tonight. We are going to come up with 5 days of broadcasting that could fill a hypothetical block party summer. However, for me, Nick at Night runs just a little bit deeper. All right. There was this Nick at Night slogan, dedicated to better living through television, was a mission statement of Nick at Night, which I truly had forgotten until I started my research for this particular podcast. But I feel like it's more than a coincidence that I now run a podcast that tries to take television and frame those conversations in such a way that they will enrich the quality of my life. So I guess maybe this whole thing started with Nick at Night after all. I'm going to hit you with a couple more little member berries. There are a lot of different promos and things that Nick at Night would use even in between the shows to build this vintage vibe and kind of keep you under the spell of classic television. So we're not going to catch this whole segment, but I just want to play the intro to The Adventures of Milkman and see if this comes rushing back to you.
Sent forth on a quest from TV land,
bringing truth and justice in his hand, delivering milk and hope to a world gone sour.
It's Milkman.
All right. Once again, I'm just going to look to the panel. I want to know if The Adventures of Milkman were able to awaken any more memories inside of your brains.
I had forgotten that one, but I love that one because my my dad's dad was actually a milkman in real life.
Mm.
And both my grandparents on that side, this is so random, but they both have brown eyes. And they had kids that all had brown eyes, except my Uncle Pete had blue eyes. And so there's this inside joke in the family that he's the milkman's kid, but like it has a double meaning because he really is the milkman's kid.
That's beautiful, perfect stuff. Um, yeah, absolutely. And before I just hear from anyone else, just one more little snippet. This was my personal favorite of the promos. This was How to Be Swell. So here we go.
Nick at Night, as a public service, presents How to Be Swell, an instructional series dedicated to better living through television. Tonight's segment, Avoiding Unwanted Relatives. The warning sounds. You have only seconds to prepare. What will you do when faced with unwanted relatives?
But you've got this playful language, how to be swell, as if we've stepped onto the set of Leave It to Beaver. You've got this silly topic, how to avoid unwanted relatives, but you're splicing this with like emergency shelter sirens, like how to survive a nuclear holocaust, sort of videography. It was some really clever stuff, and this just really truly worked on me and stuck with me through the years.
Well, I think this last promo is a good one because it's reflecting like the same kind of like wholesome, oh shucks humor that we get from these classic sitcoms. I mean, some of them will push the envelope here and there, but some of my favorites, some of the things that I remember most fondly, your Partridge Families and Brady Bunches and your Happy Days, not to spoil any potential picks. At their core, there was like that very classic, the in-laws are a pain in the butt. Watch out. A happy wife is a happy life. Just sort of very silly, on the nose American sitcom shticks. And Nick and I did a great job of running that brand through their whole promo sphere.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's my little mini history of Nick at Night. Why it's so important to me, why I think it had some staying power for a while, and it certainly evolved. Like as Chris and I were developing this concept, we've got a slight age difference in our years, and Chris's nostalgia for Nick at Night, is a little bit more attached to a time period where like the programming had changed a little bit. The timetable had moved up, and what was airing on Nick at Night. Um, but I do think it was trying to hold true to this idea of nostalgia. And I've spoken pretty extensively about my history. So Chris, I want to turn it to you. I don't know why I'm telling your story for you. What is your experience with Nick at Night?
So I did watch a lot of this stuff when I was a real young kid, and I ended up a drama kid and an actor and a voice actor now. And so much of what made me fall in love with the idea of television and performance started here. I learned like really slapstick humor from some of the greats on I Love Lucy.
Hmm.
I learned what it meant to really hit the beats and find the right moment to cause the best laugh lines. I learned to love TV through this era of television watching. So I don't have memories tied to people in my life. I didn't watch this stuff with anybody. This was me, like my grandparents' house at night alone. If my older brother had something else to do and I'm being babysat. And so this was just how I learned to love the art of television. I would love to hear next from Stevie. I know that you guys shared a lot of evening walks and talks, and I would like to think that maybe this came up once in a while. Stevie, do you have like nice memories tied to the Nick at Night era?
Yeah, I watched Nick at Night when I was a kid. But I started like really watching like the marathons and especially like the block party stuff after my parents got divorced. And so for me, it was like my authority figure was gone and I was allowed to stay up and basically just sleep on the couch all night in the summer if I wanted. And this was my like comfort television. Like Randy said before, binging was binging. This was my like
Mm-hmm.
safe space. And I think it's because it's so wholesome and because a lot of it reminds us of the generation that our parents came from that made it feel just like, I don't know, comforting. It's like a warm, I really like those shows. I'd watched some of them before I started watching Nick at Night with my parents, like reruns when I was really little. So when I found it, it was my jam already. Yeah, and I fell in love with it because of that.
Absolutely love that. That's TV shared with family is some of just the best stuff about it, right? We'll go next to Neil. Neil, were you like a TV land, Nick at Night? Where did the stuff land for you?
I think I'm actually a little bit older than the rest of the panel here, so I am able to remember when a lot of the shows that we're going to be discussing were not first run. I am not that old, although there are some exceptions here in the 70s, without a doubt. But I remember seeing a lot of these shows in syndication growing up in Massachusetts, along with Randy and Chris and Maria. I remember watching channels 38 and 56, and they syndicated a lot of these throughout the day. So yeah, that's how I picked up a bunch of my TV education, and there are a lot of representatives here that we're going to discuss. Speaking of family, it is funny that I can remember that the four members of my household, my parents, my younger sister, and myself, I think we all had different favorites from this list, and we didn't necessarily watch together. It might have just been when people were doing their own thing, but I certainly have a couple favorites here. I know my mother and sister did as well. Even my dad, who was notoriously anti-sitcom, has one glaring exception to the rule here.
I hope it stays with you, though. I hope you get it. And shout out to the classic cable network channels. We'll end the plan with you, Maria. What are your memories tied to Nick at Night?
Well, so I grew up, I was an only child. And so, and I didn't have necessarily the most like stable household growing up. And my dad was a lot older than my mom and stuff. So I had kind of, an older dad. And so a lot of these were shows that he was familiar with watching. And so they were the kind of thing where like they're sort of like had already passed his, his tests. So they were shows that we could watch together because my dad wasn't really going to watch like a whole lot of like cartoony type of things. And these were things that were like vetted by my dad. So they were things that he liked to watch and my mom liked to watch. And so it was sort of like something, they could leave me in front of the TV and watch these things and it was okay. And so I feel like I just fell in love with anything that's in black and white or, in these kind of older shows. And I think a lot of that is, because of my dad. And I think, in hindsight, like the nostalgic of it, there were a lot of these like families. And I sort of became sort of very attached to a lot of the families because they were siblings and they were like wholesome and like kind of there was comfort in that for me. And so I don't know, and now I'm just like, I view them with a really positive light. They make me really happy. They make me think about like the happy times because, it's something that I'm really happy I got exposed to. And so I'm very thankful for that because I think it adjusted my sense of humor and all kinds of stuff.
Maria, thank you so much for that. That's absolutely perfect. All right, so this is the point in the podcast where we are going to get into this draft. I'm going to run through the rules one more time for our listeners and also for the drafters as you make your final preparations, you partake in your final reflections, all those wonderful things. All right, so first and foremost, this concept started as a very selfish one for me as an elder millennial. I've got a very specific picture of what Nick at Night looks like and what classic television was featured there. However, as we've unpacked in the last 20 minutes or so, we've got people who were catching Nick at Night in slightly different eras. We've got folks who know some of these shows better through syndication than through Nick at Night. One thing that hasn't come up yet is the fact that, Nick at Night had the whole spinoff of TV Land, where you had even more of these classic sitcoms and other types of shows that you could watch and dig in deep to that nostalgia. So while I am calling this the Nick at Night Block Party Summer Draft, we have opened the door to any sitcom of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Many of them were featured on Nick at Night. I suspect those will be some of the more popular picks, but you may hear some shows under discussion tonight that weren't necessarily Nick at Night staples, because we're trying to capture the best of what that era had to offer in the sitcom genre. So that's the most important ground rule that I want to set. Number two, it gets a little bit nebulous and difficult to define the 50s, 60s, and 70s when it comes to sitcoms. Um, this whole sitcom machine like really hits its stride in the 60s. Almost everything that made it onto the list and into consideration ran at least partly in the 60s. There are a few exceptions to the rule, a few pioneers that had slightly earlier starts in comparison to the other shows, but I think that was really the height of it. And then there was this big question of, where do we cut the list off, right? Because we have some classic sitcoms that we maybe associate more with the 80s. Like I would suggest maybe The Facts of Life, I believe aired its first season in 1979, but ran vastly through the 1980s. So that's something that was not on the list. Another show that did not quite make our cut would be Three's Company. That spent some time running in the 70s, some time running in the 80s. It leans slightly heavier on the 80s. We've got a classic on the list like The Jeffersons, which I believe ran for 8 seasons. And this was like half in the 70s, half in the 80s. We granted it a 70s vibe. Just yesterday, a very successful case was made. I won't say who made it just yet, to add Taxi to the list. Now, that show technically ran the majority of its run in the 80s, but it's very close. And just based on the themes, the setting, the actors, the style, the vibe there, we decided it belonged on this list in these 50s, 60s, and 70s sitcoms. So if your favorite show is not there, perhaps, we put it on a different end of the cutoff than you would have. It's admittedly a little bit subjective, but we came up with a list that we all felt comfortable with. So at the end of the night, we are each going to have 5 shows on our list. I'm going to give the crew a brief break after the draft, just like 2 or 3 minutes to get their thoughts in order. And then we're going to come back and explain where each of these shows would air in our Monday through Friday lineup. So we're just going to give some quick reasoning as to why show X is perfect for a Tuesday and show Y is perfect for Friday night viewing. And perhaps this will just be a list of our favorites. Perhaps we'll end up with some sort of themes or synergy that rises to the surface. That's all going to come out in the draft. Finally, this is a snake style draft. We've got 5 draft participants. We determined a random draft order just before the podcast. So the draft order is going to be Neil, Stevie, Chris, Maria, and then myself, Randy, with the final pick. So we've got 5 rounds, and I don't think we need a clock. But if I think you're taking too long, I might snap the fingers and try to rush you along a little bit so we can get forward to our next pick. Any final questions before we dive in?
No, I did want to sneak a little behind the scenes podcast business in here because
I'm always here for it.
well, you noted Three's Company, and I think there were a lot of shows that were left off the table, but you noted that one, and I have to share why, because this is the moment where in our prepping and discussing, I realized, like, are we a prudish show? And I don't think we are. I don't think that's who we are. We're dads, but we're not prudes. But we felt that Three's Company was like not quite the wholesome vibe that we thought TV Land and Nick at Night encompassed. And so it didn't just get the boot because of like the time frame so much, but because I think we felt it was like a little too sexy for the vibe here. And I think that our audience deserves to know that.
Sure, yeah, a show that I appreciate, but definitely giving me different vibes than like Dick Van Dyke. So Neil, we are kicking off the draft. and you've got the first overall pick, which is partly desirable, partly a little bit intimidating because you've got so many great options on the table. But I turn the mic over to you.
All right. With the number one pick in this draft, I am going a little bit eclectic, a little bit esoteric here. You
Mm-hmm.
referenced the 60s, and I'm going right to the heart of the psychedelic swinging 60s with the Monkees. The Monkees was one I clearly remember as a child of the most of the 70s. I had an appreciation for the immediately preceding era, and the Monkees were one that I always really enjoyed. I would never go so far as to call it a great show artistically, but I did like it. They were clearly the Beatles from the Sgt. Pepper Magical Mystery Tour era. But they came up with all these zany situations that were somewhere between James Bond and the Three Stooges. There were always these iconic, silly villains that the Monkees would have to foil somehow. And the music was genuinely good. They had Daydream Believer, they had I'm Not Your Stepping Stone, they had I'm Going Down. So it was just a real classic from that Summer of Love kind of era. And I will add that The Monkees is the only show, the only sitcom that I can recall that actually featured a guest bit from none other than Frank Zappa. You can look it up, it's on YouTube. He did a segment with Mike Nesmith, Mike pretending to be Frank, Frank pretending to be Mike. It's worth its weight in gold, so do check that out. And one last thing, as soon as I knew that I was going to be first in the draft, I quickly dialed up a little bit of trivia here. This was a surprise to me, but the Monkees only ran for 2 seasons, 1967 and 68. Again, this kind of blows me away. In 1967, the Monkees wins the Emmy for Outstanding Comedy. What's even more impressive to me is the shows that it defeated Andy Griffith, Bewitched, Get Smart, and Hogan's Heroes. If you could put me in that time machine and ask me to guess which show would have ended up not winning, I immediately would have told you the Monkees, but I was happy to find out that tidbit. So yeah, that's my first pick. Here we come, walking down the street.
Yeah, Neil, that's absolutely wild. I was able to catch a little bit of the Monkees, but I never realized until fairly recently in the last few years that the band was put together for the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I always assumed they must have had a hit or two first, but yeah, I was wowed by the fact that this was a manufactured boy band of sorts that was quite successful. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Absolutely.
were like the first boy band that's just like made for TV. I saw the Monkees in concert in
Yes.
probably 2001 on the Charles River in Boston with my family, and it was epic. I'm devastated that Neil picked this show. Um This was one that I used to watch with my dad. My dad had a band when I was a kid, and so we, like, loved this show. I was about this show.
Hmm.
I had such a crush on Mickey. I was not a Davy Jones girl. I was a Mickey girl. I was Last Train to Clarksville all the way. But yeah, I thought this was a great show. Great first pick.
Thank you.
All right, Stevie, you are next up in the draft order. What's our number 2 overall pick?
Number 2 overall pick is Happy Days. Going with Happy Days.
Love it.
I love this show. It's my favorite show on the whole list, so I'm glad that thank God Neil at least didn't pick that first. Um, I started watching this show before Nick at Night, in 1992
Hmm.
on March 3rd because it was the reunion special, and my parents let me stay up really late to watch most of it because they were big Happy Days fans. But I didn't watch all of it, so they recorded the end of it on VHS, and I got to watch it in the morning with my Cocoa Puffs, the rest of that reunion special. And I was immediately in love with Richie Cunningham. And they repeatedly refer to him as having like an apple pie face or like an apple pie smile. And I was obsessed. Later, when I got older, I was more of a Potsy girl, but I love Richie Cunningham. I love the theme songs. They had 2 different theme songs. I love the vibe of it, and I feel like it's just perfect Nick at Night because it embodies the retro itself. Like, this is a show that ran mostly in, like, I think 70s and 80s. Maybe it made it to the 80s, yeah. Yeah, because Ron Howard left in 1980, I think. So this was just like a throwback in a throwback. Like, this is a show about that wholesome 50s nuclear family that you're looking for, and except that it's them looking back on it. It's them putting the rose-colored glasses on it. And I think that's really, really cool.
An excellent pick at number 2. I am a little heartbroken to see this one go. This was certainly one that I had on my draft board. Happy Days was so fun for me. I thought I didn't know what to make of Henry Winkler. I didn't know if I thought he was actually very cool. I didn't know if I was already in on the joke. But for me, that character is so iconic. I was a big Adam Sandler fan, and so by the time he resurfaces in The Waterboy, I was already a big fan of Happy Days. So it was a good full circle for me way back then. But Happy Days mostly for me was that one that like got me credibility with grown-ups. As a young person who was watching it, I think, like Randy mentioned, that bit of your identity got tied to being the type of kid who watched these shows and had this old-timey knowledge. So my ability to drop a Happy Days reference here and there was a big part of impressing the old folks in my life.
I feel like Fozzie, like, doing like a Fonzie like impression in my house was like a regular occurrence. And I feel like now as an adult, I like can't see like anything that resembles a jukebox without wanting to like hit it and like make it play. And like whenever I see like Happy Days reference, which is I'm also heartbroken that it's been taken, but it's like that character is like I feel like is a little like voice in my head sometimes. Like I can just hear him or just feel myself wanting to talk like him or that kind of stuff.
Beautiful stuff. Yeah, you have to love just Fonzie's inability to admit that he's wrong. I feel that in my soul sometimes. All right, Happy Days, fantastic pick. We are moving on, Chris, to you, the third pick in the draft. What's it going to be?
I said I was heartbroken to see Happy Days go off the board, but I wasn't that heartbroken because my number 1 overall pick is still right here for the taking. I've got to take I Love Lucy. When I think of TV Land, when I think of classic sitcoms, when I think of Nick at Night, I think of I Love Lucy. She's it. She's everything. I mean, I think now as an older person appreciating the histories of the industry, some of those behind the scenes stories, I have an understanding of kind of who she was as well as a person and what she meant to the other performers around her, her protective nature, the value she brought to the work. But as a kid, she was just so damn funny. The faces that she could make, like, just the reactions, whether it was an oh shit moment or a shit eating grin, or if it was her and Ethel getting up to some mischief together, I just couldn't get enough of Lucy. I liked the rest of the dynamic. Ricky's got a temper and he yells and she scurries, ha ha ha. But for me, it was Lucy. And so, yeah, my Nick at Night Summer Block Party lineup could not be complete. How do you get through a week, a tough dog days of summer week without a little Lucy in your life? So I'm thrilled to have her as my first pick, 3rd overall. Feels like a steal, I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, that was my family's shared favorite. It was definitely I Love Lucy. It was the crowd pleaser. It was so much fun for all those reasons that you mentioned. The classic physical comedy, but just all the little interactions with Ricky, this dynamic between them watching it unfold. But looking back as an adult, I think the main reason I'm thrilled that I spent so much time with Lucy is it was like a little bit of built-in armor against like the sexism toward female comics. because if people tried to imply that female comics were not funny, like it just never registered for me. Because it's like, what are you talking about? Have you met Lucille Ball, who basically invented everything that's good about comedy? Um, so yeah, not only is it a great show, but I would say it's a wildly important one as well.
Yeah, I learned how to stub my toe and fall and make it look funny from Lucy. I used to love to make my big brother giggle with my physical shtick.
Yeah, absolutely agree with what you're saying about the physical humor and the barrier breaking. Also want to give a shout out to that really iconic 1950s set and production design. You had the three classic elements: the apartment, I think that infamous bedroom with the twin beds, and then the nightclub. And
Hmm.
find pictures of it all on the same soundstage, just iconic stuff.
Mm.
I think I Love Lucy is so fascinating as a TV show because I find it's hard to find somebody who hasn't heard of it or hasn't seen it. Like it's so ingrained in like our TV culture, just like in references and stuff. And I feel like a lot of people you say I Love Lucy and they're going to conjure up the idea of her and her friend like shoving the chocolates in their mouth and in their dress and stuff.
Hmm.
And I feel like that is such a iconic image of just like American media. And I do find that it's one of those shows where usually if you're trying to like see if somebody likes older shows or movies or something, I Love Lucy is usually a good place to start. I find it hard to find anybody who's never seen it or at least is aware of it.
Mm.
I never liked to watch I Love Lucy. Hot take. Um, but I think that I Love Lucy is so fascinating because it is a show that faced so much adversity. Like, not only did it
Mm.
have a female main character, it had a female producer, it had a female that was so
Hmm.
active behind the scenes in an abusive marriage to the other main character who got pregnant during filming and had to find a way to
Hmm.
incorporate it and hated her co-star, the woman that played
Yep.
Ethel, notoriously fought all the time. And yet, despite all of that, it's just giving perfection. Like, and this from a non-fan. Like, it's not my jam. Physical comedy isn't my jam. I'm a very
Hmm.
verbal person. And so shows like that didn't catch me the same way, but like just giving gold every week, no matter what kind of hardships that cast is facing in their personal lives, and especially Lucille Ball.
Yeah, perfect point. All right, Maria, you are next up on the clock. Fourth pick. What's it going to be?
It's gonna be Bewitched. Bewitched is my favorite of all of these shows, and I've recently started rewatching it, and like about a month ago. So I when I was growing up, I love this show. I love the idea of like being witch and her little nose wiggle and like trying to figure out how to do that myself and like and all these things. And I loved everything about it. It was funny. Her mother was ridiculous and amazing. And then going back to it as an adult, I'm just like, wow, Darren is a jerk. I can't stand this guy. And like having sort of these like going back to I'm enjoying it, because I like it complaining about it. But it's just I don't know, it's just a really fun kind of quirky show. And I think that it's interesting how they're sort of attacking the idea of women in society and in the household against this woman who can just do whatever she wants and doesn't have to, she doesn't have to physically cook a whole meal. She can just wiggle her nose and have a whole thing. And yet her
Hmm.
husband is like, don't ever do that. That's not right. And, it kind of irks me where, my husband now is just like, man, if you could do that, like, that would be amazing. I would never tell you not to do that. Like, and so it's kind of, I don't know, I really love it. I love it a lot.
I think Bewitched is a good example of a bubble burst type show. When you go back and revisit it now as a kid, you're not really picking up on that shittiness
Hmm.
from Darren, right? It just kind of taken with the cuteness of it. To your point, she wiggles her nose, a little bit of magic goes a long way. Being in black and white lends a ton of credibility to the whole TV land vibe.
Yeah, I just want to chime in like yes and to everything that's been said. Those are the most important points. But I just also need to say that Endora is a total icon. Um, just the cattiness. She's just such a badass and has no time for Darren and his bullshit, and I love it.
I know, and I feel like Andor is one of those people where, like, so now watching it now, I see her and I'm just like, that's who I want to be when I grow up. I'm when I'm old, I want her attitude. This one, I'm not gonna take anybody's crap. She's great.
Good
And her
sass.
makeup, her like eyeshadow and everything is just wild. I love her.
And she's such a great like sitcom device to have somebody that can just poof in and mess with what's going on at any time. Bewitched trivia, since Neil hasn't mentioned this yet. We did have an actor change in Bewitched in season 6. Darren, who has been played consistently by Dick York, gets switched to another Dick and becomes Dick Sargent.
It's like they knew.
It's like they knew. It's like he was just in the wings, like ready. But yeah, that was an interesting shift that I felt like was noticeable as a kid.
Well, I was reading about this the other day that I can't remember her name now, but the actress who plays Samantha did not like the new Darren when Dick York left, and the new guy came in. It was like their first day of reading the script, and she was just like, "I don't like this guy," and so like she had a really good relationship with Dick York, so it was kind of, I guess, difficult to be like, "Oh, new guy."
Before we move on, I just have to say shout out to Gladys Kravitz for just being the ultimate nosy neighbor and the most important influence on eventually WandaVision. All right. So I'm picking fifth, which means I'm picking on the turn. I get back-to-back picks. I'm in both a great and a difficult situation here because looking at my personal faves, I think I vibed with Nick at Night slightly differently than everyone else because these are all incredible shows that I would have drafted eventually. Um, but my top three shows are still available, and I can only get two of them. I can't imagine the third one will still be there when it gets back to me. So I'm going to follow my heart, and I'm going to pick the two shows that both have episodes that are so iconic that I still think about them on a regular basis, like almost every single week. I think about an episode of each of these shows. So the first one up for discussion, I'm going to take the Mary Tyler Moore Show off the board. Right now, I thought for most of my life that I wanted to be a journalist. That's not the path I wound up taking. It is in no small part due to watching Mary Tyler Moore over and over and over again. Um, this ensemble cast was just so incredible. Like, obviously, Mary Tyler Moore at the center of it carries the show. Sometimes she can be the source of the humor. Sometimes she's playing the straight man to people like Ted Baxter or Mr. Grant. Obviously, the humor came before the journalism and the news, but I still like felt that sense of a harried newsroom. Like I really felt like there was something important happening somewhere in the background behind all the antics and the infighting. And that iconic ending where they're all hugging each other in a group hug, trying to grab a tissue, is a favorite moment. However, perhaps one of the most important episodes of television ever made is not the finale of Mary Tyler Moore. It's the episode Chuckles Bites the Dust. Is one of my favorite episodes of television ever made. In this episode, they have to rush a report that a television figure, Chuckles the Clown, was crushed to death by an elephant while dressed as a peanut at a parade. And nobody in the newsroom can resist cracking jokes about it because it's so ridiculous and silly. And Mary Tyler Moore spends the entire episode like up her own ass, like talking down to everyone about how dare you make light of this situation? How dare you joke about it? people are apologizing and trying to explain to her what's happening and that it's a defense mechanism and this, that, and the other thing. And it's basically a lesson in gallows humor. But the final joke of the episode is, they all, this was a television personality, so they all attend the wake and the funeral. And that's where Mary loses it. Like while the priest is talking, she just starts cracking up in the middle of the ceremony when it's time to be solemn and respectful. She loses it. She can no longer hold it in. And I just thought that was one of the best pieces of writing I had ever seen. I love gallows humor. We know I love Kurt Vonnegut. I'm wearing my Vonnegut shirt today. I've used this episode to teach Kurt Vonnegut because I think it captured it so well. So Mary Tyler Moore, that's going to be my number one overall pick.
Excellent pick. Iconic theme song. Buddy, if you're going to keep drafting like this, I think you're gonna make it after all.
I like Mary Tyler Moore because I feel like it precluded so many journalistic sitcom type of shows like to come down the road. Like we have News Radio, we have Just Shoot Me,
Mhm.
kind of one of those. Murphy Brown, arguably even like Clarissa Explains It All, which is like the adolescent version of a journalist, is all owed to Mary Tyler Moore.
Clarissa Explains It All as a legacy of Mary Tyler Moore, something I never would have arrived at. That's brilliant. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That's facts. So.
And I will also give kudos to any show that also, in addition to all, its accolades and brilliance, manages to make excellent use of Betty White. And by featuring Betty White as an occasional character who happened to be a total horn dog who just looked like Betty White. Great. And I'm going to do it one more time, but I'm going to give a little shout out here. See if we know what you're talking. We'll see if you're on your game, Randy. Shout out to Mimsy. You know who Mimsy was?
No, I can't remember Mimsy.
Do you remember how every show of Mary Tyler Moore would end after the credits?
Apparently not.
I think you do. Let me give you. Meow.
Oh, was this the production company little logo? Yeah.
The NTM kit name was Mimsy, and it was a riff on the MGM lion. So,
Okay.
Wizard of Oz and all the MGM movies started with the roaring lion. Every episode of Mary Tyler Moore, which was an MTM production, ended with the kitten. And then that kitten, that logo actually made its way to some other shows. So I guess Mary Tyler Moore must have had her hand in the production. My favorite riff on that was in Newhart, where instead of actually, you saw the kitten, but you heard Bob Newhart's,
Yes.
you heard Bob Newhart not sounding much like a kitten, but in a very droll way saying, meow.
Yep. Yeah, because the Newhart of the 80s, that was one that I think I also watched in syndication. Was a really, really big show. Yeah, now that you mention this cat image, I remember it. I'd be lying if I told you I was going to remember that was attached to Mary Tyler Moore specifically, but that imagery is definitely ringing true. All right, my next pick. I don't know whether or not this was going to be hotly contested or not, but my soul would die if I did not walk away from this draft with this show. So my next pick just has to be Get Smart. It just absolutely has to be Get Smart. I was a kid, and in the late 80s and the early 90s, they tried to aim Inspector Gadget at me. And I did watch it and enjoy it somewhat. But I felt like I had unlocked some sort of life cheat code when Get Smart started airing on Nick at Night. And I realized that this was the Inspector Gadget voice. And I realized that there was something much smarter happening here. Now, yes, this is a Mel Brooks production, right? So you've got satire, you've got campiness. Granted, if this is going to run on my Nick at Night block, we're going to often need some historical contextualizing and information, because we've got some serious issues with representation and racism and things like yellowface, which I don't want to push away lightly to the side. Obviously, those are big problems with this show. However, a few things about the spirit of this show that really ring true to me. Um, just number one, it's meant to be a spoof of James Bond first and foremost. So the fact that it's willing to take down that sort of over the top masculine energy and challenge it with Agent 99 always being the one who always knows what's going on. It might have been nice to see her like not always defer uh to Max, but she is the one solving the problem. She is the one who has the information. Um, but like, more importantly, the show is a reflection of just like Cold War politics for me. My favorite plot line of Get Smart involves Max going undercover with Chaos, the loosely evil organization. He has to convince them that he has left control, quote unquote, the good guys. Um, he gets recruited into their ranks. He's in some sort of chaos cell planning some sort of mischief or chaos, and he realizes there's another undercover agent there. And like they try to make contact with one another. And by the end of the episode, you realize that every single member of the chaos cell is actually a control agent serving as a double agent. And while it was very funny, it was also such a poignant message about like where do all these spy games really lead? Um, what when have you crossed the line into the games you're playing, not actually solving anything, but just creating this atmosphere of chaos and good guys and bad guys? What does it do other than create a situation for people to exploit? So yeah, powerful themes, great show. It's Get Smart for me.
I think Get Smart is very genre defining in its own way. I like that you brought up Inspector Gadget because I think I had a similar thing where I was like, wait, this is like the same show. And like a slight like off topic, but I recently rewatched The Pink Panther with Peter Sellers, and I think like I started watching it because I'm thinking of him as being this sort of like which he is, pretty clumsy, like kind of clueless thing. And I was watching it, and I was like, I think this movie was more like Get Smart. Like I think I thought of him as being a lot more like there was more physical. Like there is a lot of physical comedy, but I think I like kind of mix those two characters together and sort of hearing you talk about Get Smart, I was like, oh yeah, I think that's really what I had wanted to watch is Get
Right.
Smart.
I went very long on my picks, Maria. So I'm gonna throw this back to you. I just quickly want to mention for folks if you haven't checked out Get Smart, it's got the iconic introduction scene with the spy music playing in the background as Max enters the control base by going through a series of more and more complicated doors. It just goes on forever. He goes through like 12 different doors to get into this secret base. And then he has this iconic shoe phone with like an antenna he has to pull out and like pull it off in the middle of situations to contact control. Gotta love those pre-cell phone days. All right, Maria, we're back to you. What's your second pick?
Let's see. My second pick is going to be the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yep.
And so this is one of those shows that I loved growing up as a kid, and I really liked it, and I think it defined a lot of, like, my idea of, like, the perfect man. I think I based a lot on Dick Van Dyke, like, he's so funny to me, he's clumsy, he's sorta like a big goof, he's sort of always trying to, make Mary Tyler Moore laugh, and at the same time, she's like, "Oh my god, what's going on?" And then at the same time being somebody who trips over everything all the time, like when he like his tripping over the ottoman, where I'm like, I do that. So um I don't know, the show's really comforting to me. And when I think about like imagining, as a kid, like thinking of, my married life or a family. And like, I feel like that's where I went was with the Dick Van Dyke Show and like trying to sort of be like that, and so it's very special to me. And like, it's one of like the shows that, I still watch when I catch it and stuff. And I love it more and more every time I see it. So this is great. And Dick Van Dyke is just such an icon to me. Probably
Hmm.
one of my first crushes. Dick Van
I
Dyke.
second that. Dick Van Dyke is so handsome, so
He
charming, and
is,
his
yes.
voice, no matter
Mhm.
what accent he's doing, like that kind of like rumbly,
Mhm.
jowly, growly to it. I
Mhm.
love his voice.
Oh, yeah. And then when he was in, like, Mary Poppins and, like, as a kid, I was like, "Wow, I'm in love with him." Like
He a dirty man.
Mhm. I know.
I think you guys, we just let you ISO Dick Van Dyke right there. I have nothing to add.
Yeah, if I could have any fraction of the charm of Dick Van Dyke, I'd be a much better person. But Maria, when you mentioned the ottoman, I did hear the little music cue, like when he tries to sidestep it, that you heard every episode.
Yes.
Bloop.
And, like, shoving stuff in the I don't remember what it was, but it was, like, all that stuff that was, like, in a closet, and he, like, opens it and everything
Yep, yep.
comes out, and it's like I don't know, I feel like now I just see a lot of, like, my husband and I in them, and, like, I don't know if it's like I'm
Mhm.
projecting, but I just feel like there's a lot of these, like, happy little quirky things that I'm like, I did it."
Nice. Yeah, that was my other one in my top 3 that I struggled to cut. All right, Chris, moving back to you for your second pick.
I think what I'm discovering as we move through this draft, I think you said it already, Randy, this is a deeply personal thing, how we watch and relate to TV land
Mhm.
or Nick at Night, because I find myself in a similar position where so many picks have been made, and yet my number 2 overall is sitting right here waiting for me.
Mhm.
Um, The Munsters, for
Mm.
me, again, just like intrinsically linked to this type of television viewing as a kid, the kind of thing that I attach to my identity as like an old soul, references that I like to be able to make to the adults in my life. There was a football player. My dad was a coach. I played football as well. There was a kid on one of his teams with a hairline and a smile that just made you instantly think of Eddie Munster, and everybody only called him Eddie. That wasn't his name. His name was Matt, but everybody called him Eddie. But I don't think most of the people who called him that got the reference, but I did, and I love that. Now, this was in black and white, which again lends credibility to the time frame. But I was also a budding goth kid. Randy, we've talked about The Crow
Mhm.
and how that would
Mhm.
inform sort of an 8-year-old me about something in myself that I was tapping into. But earlier than that was the Munsters. I loved the aesthetic. I loved that they were creepy and weird. But I didn't know the Addams Family yet. I knew the Munsters. I knew big, goofy Herman Munster and this classic American dynamic, like a recognizable family dynamic, but totally weird and otherworldly and
Mhm.
unacceptable. I don't know if I had a bigger crush on Lily or on like the cousin niece Marilyn. Like I don't. They both worked for me as a super young little lad. I just was attracted to all. Um, so yeah, the Munsters gotta be for me here.
Well, I'm heartbroken that that's been picked. I feel like and I love the Addams Family as well, like, I love both those shows, the same thing, as, like, budding little goth kid, and I think I like The Munsters more because it's, more realistic to a true American family, whereas the Addams Family, they're, like, super rich, and they don't have to really worry about anything, and, like, he's working class, he's going to work, he's got his lunchbox and
Mhm.
stuff, and so I feel like it's just I don't know, I think it doesn't get as much love as it should. Like, the Addams Family
Yeah.
kinda overshadows it, and I'm kind of, like, a little over it. Like, I love the Addams Family, but I feel like compared to the Munsters, there's something, um, so much more relatable and, quirky and wholesome about the Munsters over the Addams Family.
Amen.
Yeah, Fred Gwynn as Herman is just stellar, incredible. And then it's been a while since I've watched it, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but in my memory, like no one ever acknowledges that he is like a Frankenstein's monster. All right, on that note, Stevie, we are up to you and your number 2 overall pick.
Okay, my number 2 overall pick has to be this because they come as a box set. It's Laverne and Shirley.
Mhm. Mm.
I had to get Laverne and Shirley because I don't know how you could have Happy Days in the lineup and not have Laverne and Shirley. Classic spinoff. These girls got their start on Happy Days as like girls that were necking with the boys, which is how I completely understood relationships as a child. It's like if you're in a relationship, then you're necking, and that means you have to take your gum out of your mouth. I don't know why, but just put it behind your ear. You can put it back in your mouth later, because you're in love. So, yeah, that's how they got their start. And then you've got like Lenny and Squiggy as well, coming into Laverne and Shirley, who are just like absolutely perfect, iconic. Like I was obsessed with Lenny and Squiggy when I was a kid. I had a little tiny denim jacket that I would pretend was a leather jacket and would like grease my hair up and think that I was just like it. Not even realizing really that they were like an embarrassing version of like I guess a greaser is the category that they would fit. And I'm a theme song girl. Like in case you haven't noticed, like I was mad about the Monkeys. I pick Happy Days, two different perfect theme songs.
Mm-hmm.
Laverne and Shirley is like the perfect thing to get drunk with your girlfriends and run down the street singing that theme song. I'm obsessed. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Schlemiel, Schlemansel, Hans Pep Incorporated. We're gonna do it. And everybody knows it. So it's just like you make friends. You like start belting out Laverne and Shirley and you find your people.
Also one of my favorite bits in Wayne's World.
And I just want to call out one favorite moment that I had with Laverne and Shirley was the episode where Lenny and Squiggy are appearing on the dating game. They end up angering the Bachelorette and basically they end up making a mockery of the whole thing. However, since I don't remember who won, but one of them did win, I believe it was Squiggy who won. Now, because he is so thoroughly angry at the young lady, he gets to choose someone else to go on the date with. He chooses Lenny, and they get to go on a trip to Acapulco together, which I think is beautiful.
That's great
perfect.
episode. I want to also bring up that the actresses did not get along. Again, we had Cindy Williams and the person whose name I should know and I can never remember, Penny Marshall, the more famous of the two.
Yeah.
And they like notoriously didn't get along. And actually, Cindy Williams, I think, ends up leaving the show 2 years before the end of its run in 84. It ran 10 years, 74 to 84. In 1982, Cindy Williams leaves because she's pregnant. And Penny Marshall tries to do the show alone, just like Laverne, no Shirley. And it gets canceled after that because you can't have Laverne with no Shirley. Although you can't have Hocus Pocus with Laverne. Laverne is basically iconically in Hocus Pocus.
This
Marshall basically just reprises that role. So.
Brilliant cameo. Brilliant cameo.
Yeah, she's the best. All right. Moving on back to Neil. Neil, you're going to get to pick on the turn. So you've got 2 picks coming up.
Wow. Okay. So for my second overall pick, I'm going to go with my favorite workplace sitcom, and that is Taxi. I just found that this show had a little bit of everything. I think Judd Hirsch was just excellent as kind of the mensch man who be funny on his own and played straight man to all the wacky personalities. Tony Danza has never been used more properly. I really enjoy Meryl Kenner and Carol Kane this show. Now, any show that can just take Andy Kaufman and actually manage to work professionally with Andy Kaufman, make him totally outlandish yet have its place, to me is a stroke of brilliance. But I really have to look at Danny DeVito in this show. I remember, I want to say it was maybe the late 90s for the early 2000s. TV Guide, for those of us old enough to remember TV Guide, came out with its list of the top TV characters of all time. Now, I'm sure a list like that today would be vastly different, but they went with Louis De Palma, Danny DeVito's character, as their all-time favorite. And I can remember a couple moments why that just really resonates with me. One is when Louis is actually driving the cab and he is taking this snotty, precocious, 10-year-old-ish prep school student to school. And he ends up making some bets with the kid. Like, who can hold their breath the longest is the key one. He ends up conning this kid out of all his money, and it's brilliant. But then towards the end of the run, Louis had a blind girlfriend, and she was having a medical procedure that was going to enable her to see. And he was really, really afraid that she was going to completely reject him when she was able to see, because let's face it, you know, if you're going to see the first time, maybe your dream man doesn't look like Danny DeVito. But when she is able to see, she smiles and she says, Louis, you're exactly like I imagine. And it's just this, it gave this jerk of a character some real humanity. And I know I'm focusing on one character here, but for just the that sort of vibe of getting through the trials of life by being able to bounce humor and serious issues off your coworkers. I really always loved that one. So yeah, that's my number 2.
Neil, what is your third overall pick?
So my third overall pick, I am going to go strictly on the basis of theme song. I am not saying this wasn't an enjoyable show, but number 1 favorite theme song of all time, the original, spacey, trippy, well ahead of its time. Number 2 favorite theme song of all time, composed by Quincy Jones, is the theme to Sanford and Son.
Yes.
One of the funkiest, best instrumental tunes ever put to a TV show. Now, beyond that, I am not saying that Red Fox was not a very funny fellow. He really was. But I think some memories of what we see on TV are based on the songs. Of course, I talked about the Monkees earlier, but that groovy, funky little instrumental tune with the harmonica, I have always loved that. So yeah, I know I'm kind of cheating a little bit here, but I think we need to recognize the role that music plays. And yeah, for that reason, I am more than happy to go with Sanford and Son as my third pick.
Bum, bum, buana.
Exactly.
All right. Excellent pick, Neil. Stevie, what is your third overall pick?
My third overall pick, because I can't have Taxi. You're welcome for getting Taxi in the lineup.
Yes, thank you, Stevie.
I've never done a draft thing, and it's because I'm like so competitive that I'm not competitive. Like I just quit and leave. In college, Randy and I were playing like a game of, what was it, Risk or something, and I wasn't the one to flip over a table, but it's remarkable that I was not the one to flip over a table.
I
Anyway.
did see you once literally throw a plate of spaghetti at a wall. So, yeah.
Was that me? That was me. That was me. Okay. All right. So anyway, I'm not going to throw a plate of spaghetti at Neil. I'm going to graciously let him have that and just like drop it. And I'm going to take Gilligan's Island, which is also wonderful. It has an amazing theme song. It has a theme song that I think is so iconic and so amazing that when Neil started being like, I'm going to go with the best theme song one, I was like, if this son of a gun takes Gilligan's Island, I will lose it right now. Because it really is like, it's my last favorite on the list. I started watching Gilligan's Island before Nick at Night. It was on Channel 6 early in the morning on basic cable when I was a little kid. And I loved it. Earlier, you guys were talking about how Three's Company was maybe like a little too sexy for the lineup. I think Gilligan's Island is such a sexy show. You got Marianne, you got Ginger, you got the professor. Like, oof, I just think that cast is so great. I love the song. I love this relationship between the skipper and Gilligan, and I just really like it. And it's black and white, so it should fit Chris's ideas of what Nick at Night should be.
Yeah, you're right. They really do give the cast of Lost a run for their money. That's a great observation.
Yeah, that's a fun pick, Stevie. And just a little useless tidbit here. In another life, I worked doing production duties for a talk show, a radio talk show. And when Survivor had become the massive hit that it was in its early days, a topic that was played just for fun was if Gilligan's Island were on Survivor, how would the votes go? And I don't remember too much about it other than that Lovey would certainly be the first one voted off the island. You would logically think that maybe the professor would win the whole thing, but I don't know. I kind of see him being upset by Marianne in the end, but that's just me.
Maybe Marianne, but also maybe the movie star. Like,
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of appeal, and she's really surprisingly diplomatic.
Right.
I have a little theory that I think the professor is purposely keeping them all there. That's just always been my theory on it. Like when I think about Gilligan's Island and I love it, and then for some reason I always take it into a dark place. And I just feel like I'm like, I don't know. I feel like he's keeping them there.
Maria, I
some
love
sort
that
of
idea.
Yeah.
I feel like we could have a whole podcast spinoff where we watch episode by episode and we just pick apart how the professor has sabotaged everything.
That is an amazing idea. I love that idea.
Chris, moving on to your pick. If I don't know if you're also sour that Gilligan was taken, but if you are a big Bob Denver fan, we've still got Dobie Gillis sitting right there for the taking. So just so you know, just putting that public service announcement out there.
I appreciate the live draft coaching. Thank you, Randy. I'm still a little shook though by this concept of the professor's grand experiment on the island. I'm gonna be thinking about that for a long time. Okay, so for me here, I think, well, I'll say I too was heartbroken the taxi got taken. I was shying away from it because I knew it had been advocated for and it wasn't my advocacy. But that cast list, I was thinking, how do you leave that cast list on the table? And my pick here is very similar. I'm going to go with Mork and Mindy because when Robin Williams is in the draft, you draft Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's that. I am
Nanu.
my man. So a handful of us are from Massachusetts. We've all lived in Massachusetts. I love Good Will Hunting. I have such a deep reverence and respect for Good Will Hunting. But I'm also a Kevin Smith fan. Who here has seen Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back? When they reference Good Will Hunting, Jay's first reaction is, "You mean that fucking movie with Mork from Ork in it?"
Yes.
And reducing all that is Good Will Hunting down to the movie with Mork from Ork in it is, for me, one of the best bits of writing comedy that you can ask for. This show is so iconic. The getup is ridiculous in Robin Williams, and it's Robin Williams. So I had to take it here. Plus, I love alliteration. Guess which day of the week this one's going to be on?
I mean, Monday.
Yeah, it's going to be on Monday. That's also a spinoff from Happy Days.
Yep.
Which is why I was pulling my hair out, but I had to snatch up my Gilligan's Island because that's one of my favorites. And I don't remember if Mork and Mindy was on the list, but it was definitely one of the ones that I emailed Randy about the day I saw the list, being like, holy crap, make sure you got Mork and Mindy on there. Everything that came from Happy Days is gold.
Maria, what is your third overall pick?
I'm gonna go with Hogan's Heroes.
Nice.
One, I love the theme song. Sometimes the theme song, and just be walking around and hear it in my head. But I I love this show. I think it's really funny. It's like a goofy take on The Great Escape. And I feel like at some point in my childhood, my dad tried to explain that to me, and I was like, it's like about The Great Escape, and I was like, oh, you mean Hogan's Heroes? And I can like hear that in my head. But I love that show. I just think it's like, I don't know, it's a fun concept of a show that kind of takes place at a certain time in modern American television. So it's relating to people who might have been in that situation, or kids of parents who are veterans or something. And I just think it's really just a really funny, like goofy Nazis and stuff. Like I love Indiana Jones, and like, some of my favorite things about Indiana Jones is him punching Nazis,
Mhm.
and like, so and I also like grew up with older parents, and so I feel like, there's was this strong like uh, you know, pro American POW kind of idea. So I don't know, I just get a big kick out of it. And like Colonel Schultz, now when I see like Giuliani or something, I'm like, oh, it's Colonel Schultz, or if I feel like I'm getting in trouble for something and I'm like, I know nothing, and so it's something that's like part of just my personality now. And and all the quirky stuff of them like leaving, crossing underneath the gate and like lifting up the like doghouse and the tunnels underneath of it and stuff. I just think it's fun to watch.
Absolutely phenomenal pick.
Mhm.
All right, we're getting to the tough part of the draft. I'm almost like distraught over the fact that I have 2 picks left. I'm at war with myself over like, do I just keep being selfish about what I love the most, or do I try to maybe add some broader appeal shows? Um, but I think I'm gonna go with my heart. I never thought in a zillion years I would get to draft this year. Uh, but I've got to go with I've got to go with the Bob Newhart show. Listen, my only downside to this pick really is the fact that if I'm being honest, I am a bigger fan of Newhart, uh, the '80s sitcom. That one I spent even more time watching and loving, falling
Yes.
in love with the vibe and the characters. I do think that's a superior show. But the thing is, like, it doesn't matter if it's the rescuers. It doesn't matter if he's just popping on to be curmudgeonly in Elf, or even like something dumb like The Big Bang Theory or whatever. Like, I'll just listen to Bob Newhart anytime that I can. I just want to hear that voice. It's calming, it's soothing. Neil brought up the great cat with Bob Newhart voiceover gag. There's just something so soothing and calming about him. He has the most casual sarcasm, maybe, of anyone who's ever existed. He can deliver these biting little remarks, but it like takes 30 seconds to realize that it was a biting little remark. And if I can have Bob Newhart on my list, my heart is full. So Bob Newhart show for number 3.
Randy, have you ever seen or probably more probably heard of any of Bob Newhart's older stand-up routines?
Yes, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember which bit they used in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Her husband tries to rip off Bob Newhart's stand-up as part of his own stand-up career. It's something about, I think it's like Abraham Lincoln's like agent or handler or something, like trying to come up with his look or something. Is that him?
I think you're right on the right track, and that rings a bell to me because I believe one of Bob Newhart's shticks was to place phone calls, and you have the phone with him there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Maybe he just mimed it to fictional or real characters from history. The one I always remembered is when he was speaking with Sir Walter Raleigh, the inventor or proprietor of tobacco smoking. It's something to the effect of, "Hey, Walt, how you doing? What's that? Uh-huh. You put it in your mouth, and then what do? You set it on fire." And it's just so in line with his deadpan kind of humor. And I think I'll convert you to a Bob Newhart stand-up fan if you check out some of those sketches.
I love it. I love it. All right. So for my next pick, I can follow my heart. I can try to sound smart, or I could try to like mix up the flavor and style of my programming block for more variety, which would probably be the smartest move. But instead, I'm just gonna follow my heart, and I'm gonna go with The Odd Couple, um, because quite frankly, it was in the top few Nick at Night shows that consistently made me laugh. Is it as good as the film, with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau? No, it's not. It's not as good as that. But it's a good, fun gag. The roommates that don't match. They made it work, and you've got Felix delivering the line that I quote to this day, when you assume you make an ass out of you and me. And that stuck with me. So I'm going with The Odd Couple. How do you guys think that one measures up to other iterations?
It's a good choice, Randy. And just in terms of the situation of one person being the neatnik and one other being the slob, how many of us at some point in life did not find ourselves thrust into a similar situation? For me, it was a very unwelcome college roommate, but I think there's a lot of truth in that sort of unexpected pairing. So yeah, great pick.
I think it's funny because Randy talks about whether he should follow his heart or like try to be cohesive or like try to jumble up his lineup for the block party. And I think it's so cool how kind of cohesive all of our lineups are shaping up to be. I don't want to speak prematurely, but just because if you follow your heart, it's like true to your vibe.
Yep.
And we don't have to get into it, but Randy definitely had an odd couple sort of situation with one of his college roommates that I remember.
Yeah, I think that was the year you were living in the same hallway. Yes. Yes.
I feel like you had two. You had two because when I came to visit your freshman year, you had an odd couple situation, and then your sophomore year was another odd couple situation.
Yeah, there are a couple of good ones. Although at least my first very often drugged out roommate, he was at least worth a good laugh. Yeah, no, we had fun. It was quite a time. All right, so that was The Odd Couple. Maria, what's your fourth overall pick?
I think, even though I trash talked it earlier, I'm going to go with the Adams Family as
Nice.
my fourth pick because I do love it. Because it's quirky and I love that kind of thing, and I think it's iconic. It's again one of those shows that has become its own entity, and there's so many different Morticia and Gomez is now in just the universe of the Addams Family, and they're all excellent. And and the way that the kids are and stuff, and just their weird family. I don't know. It's another one of those shows where I feel like growing up in like not necessarily an always stable environment. It was a family that I admired and I imagined being a part of because they were so weird and quirky and liked all these weird things that I found myself liking as I got older. And um I know they were just a loving, cool family to want to be a part. And the theme song is, classic and thing and like all of the relatives and all that stuff. And like I just feel like the way that it carried over into its kind of own franchise world with all the bringing in all the other characters and kind of stuff like that is just it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think the only thing working against that was how much I loved the Munsters and then how much I loved the 90s films.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But yeah, I
love the
mean,
90s.
but yeah, it's such a fun vibe.
I was
All
almost going
right.
to say the opposite, that the 90s films and then, of course, now Wednesday Addams Netflix series reinforces my love for the source, I guess you would say, right? For the
Yeah.
classic.
Well, like
Oh yeah.
Wednesday's dance in the Netflix show, like, and then you see, Wednesday in the black and white show is very similar, and you can see. I feel like they did a really good job of like
Oh yeah.
growing up that Wednesday. Not the Wednesday that's gonna uh burn down Plymouth Plantation, which I think is really funny, but like so I feel like they did a really good job of carrying that character over.
I love it. All right. Yeah, Stevie, your theory about everyone having a vibe. I'm looking at the list and I concur. But let's see if it holds true. Chris, what's your fourth overall pick?
Uh, I'm a little torn at what to do here because there are some names left on the board, in my opinion. There's some icons. It's got to be I Dream of Jeannie here. And now Bewitched is gone, but this feels like I can picture the Block Party Summer promos. I Dream of Jeannie is like core to the Nick at Night lineup. I think we're doing a mixture of sitcoms of the time, of TV land, but I Dream of Jeannie is pure Nick at Night for me. It captures the essence of the 60s. Earlier tonight, somebody was picking and called out the swinging 60s before their pick, and I thought for sure they were about to take I Dream of Jeannie. You've got an astronaut. What could be more 60s, more of the time? You've got the scantily clad Jeannie. Problematic dynamic. Again, probably a bubble burster to go back and rewatch. Now, they do fall in love. She is a slave to begin with. There are issues there. I think one of the brilliant conceits of the show, though, one of the things that made it so fun for me as a kid to watch was the magic. This isn't a classic Three Wishes Genie scenario. She's got limitless use of her wish granting, and she'll even grant wishes that you haven't made yet, right? Which is a lot of the fun of the show. So yeah, there's that iconic stance, the head nod, and some magic. And I think I mentioned earlier, as like a budding lover of television, I would go on to participate in film and TV, and love to make my own stuff at home. The simplicity of these early effects. Cut the camera, you move a thing, you hit record again, and it's gone. Those are some of the first effects that found their way into my home movies as a kid. So I have very fond memories of Jeannie, of the show. And yeah, it just feels like it's got to be in a Nick at Night lineup.
Did anybody else really want one of those little Genie's bottle lounges to hang out in? That always looked so cozy. I was always down for that.
And so 60s, so plush, so cozy.
I mean, I want that even more now. I'm like, I'm an adult. I have my own
Yes.
money. I should be able to buy this now.
Absolutely perfect stuff. All right, Stevie, how will your vibe continue with your fourth overall pick?
I have to pick 2 more shows, like, before this is done. So I'm now picking on hate. Like, what do I hate the funniest?
Yep.
Because I don't have any more that I like. But I also want to point out how good the Dream of Jeannie theme song is. It's like phenomenal, so good, so fun. I'm gonna pick Mr. Ed because I hate Mr. Ed the funniest. Like when Mr. Ed is on, I can't not watch it. Like I remember that from TV Land, Nick at Night vibes, or like even basic cable, which I do want to make clear because there have been some comments, but I am born and raised Massachusetts till the ripe old age of 26. So I was on the same basic cable as you guys, and Mr. Ed was on before Nick at Night. It was like on in the same like kind of lineup as Lassie. Like if you were watching Dennis the Menace, Lassie, you would get Mr. Ed in there sometimes if you stayed on TV till 11, if your parents neglected you like that. And so I did watch a lot of Mr. Ed, and I just remember it being like funny in kind of a cringy way, but like I don't know, like a train wreck. Like I just couldn't look away. I loved that dumb white horse.
Wilbur.
Yes, and his weird voice. I loved him. I'm glad. I'm going to say that I'm glad that Chris took Mork and Mindy and I Dream of Jeannie, and that Neil took the Monkeys, which would have completed my lineup, because now I get to have Mr. Ed, and I'm glad I have Mr. Ed, so it's fine.
You're welcome.
Stevie, you can have our picks in syndication.
That's so kind of you.
Yeah, I don't know if this is an actual factoid. I could be making this up, but in my memory, my brain is telling me that they would like feed the horse peanut butter to make his lips move.
I also heard that. Yeah.
That's a fun pick. I wasn't sure anyone would grab it, and I'm very happy that you did. I think that's awesome. All right, Neil, you're gonna round out your draft. We've got your 4th and 5th picks coming up here.
I could go in a couple different directions here. I really could, but I'm going to make a declaration here. John Travolta has been good in 3 things, and 3 things exactly. Good in Pulp Fiction. He was good in Saturday Night Fever, and he was good in my next pick, Welcome Back, Kotter. So I suppose, as I said with Taxi, this is another sort of workplace show. All of the Sweat Hogs were great. Reno, Freddie Boom Boom Washington, Juan Epstein, and of course, Horshack. I really like the idea of Gabe Kaplan's Mr. Cotter, who injected humor into every situation to diffuse, number one, his superiors, particularly that very uptight principal, and also the way that he ended up using humor to ultimately get the sweat hogs on his side. Because, I mean, who are they? They're a bunch of annoying punk ass teenagers, but they related to him because he was just a funny guy. So anyone who can be the workplace cut up, I'm all in favor of that guy or that lady. So yeah, Cotter. That's my number 4.
For a brilliant assessment of John Travolta's whole career, I give you bonus points, Neil.
Thank you. If he was good at anything else, do let me know.
Maybe Broken Arrow. We're going to give an honorable mention to Broken Arrow.
I have not seen that one, so I am not here to defend myself, Chris, but very good.
I mean, I'm sure you could count on him to like pronounce someone's name properly.
Oh my goodness. Yes. 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 Nobody wants to be desemed. That is for sure.
Absolutely. I'm always happy to hear a shout out for a public school teacher. So thank you for that. All right. How you rounding out this list, Neil?
Okay, so I honestly have to say I am stunned that this one is still on the list.
I think I know where we're going.
Into that at the very beginning of the show. My number 5 pick is All in the Family. Obvious, iconic, legendary for tons of reasons. And I feel that for me just to really dive into it would just kind of be redundant. But the fact that they centered a sitcom around a conservative, bigoted character made him identifiable, if not sympathetic, but also funny and on occasion lovable. That's a real achievement. That's why Carol O'Connor and Gene Stapleton, became household names back in the early 70s and then for several years after. It was one of the shows that also tackled serious issues from time to time. It certainly had an off-center way of going after issues like racism and sexism and even sexual assault from pretty famous storyline involving Edith. But yeah, it's funny. We all have our TikTok, our Facebook, or Instagram feeds, and for whatever reason, All in the Family clips started coming off in my wife's feed, and I had to look at them and just kind of remind myself at how skillfully made that show was. And this is the one that I alluded to back at the beginning. And this is the one that I alluded to at the beginning of the episode. My father, who is notoriously sitcom averse, to my knowledge, has enjoyed 2 sitcoms in his entire life. One was Schitt's Creek, which I heartily support, and the other was All in the Family. I think he saw how skillfully created that Archie Bunker character was. It's not unlike the vein of Tony Soprano, where you have a guy who should be completely unlikable, yet somehow they managed to make him identifiable. So yeah, that is how I'm rounding up my draft.
Yeah, it definitely created a really important blueprint that people have been chasing ever since.
Absolutely.
Well, and from that, you got the Jeffersons that, sort of, it's like the other side of that, he's an Archie kind of character. And, I think I'm disappointed. This was like, I was holding on to this one. I was like, no one's going to pick All in the Family. But the show, I agree. It's really dear to me. And, I feel like it was, I don't know. I feel like as a young kid watching All the Family, there were a lot of like morals that kind of reached me as like a young kid. It was almost like my parents were having me watch it and being kind of my, like, this is how you deal with this kind of thing, or this is, I don't know, it means a lot to me.
I'm not sure how it would have gone over if we never got around to All in the Family in this draft. So thank you, Neil. All right, Stevie, how are you rounding out your draft?
Okay. Since this is the last one, I feel like I can say the two that I'm torn between and explain my decision. Is that okay? I'm torn
Yeah.
between the Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family. Okay, and here's why. I have not seen many episodes of the Partridge Family. I do believe it is a superior show because it is musical
Mhm.
and I don't know, and it has a cool cast. I've seen every episode of the Brady Bunch multiple times and I hated it, but I watched it even though I hated it. Like, remember when TV was like that, when you were like, this is what's on, it's
Mhm.
fine. I'll watch 3 hours of the Brady Bunch. I want to die, but this is the best I can do with my time right now. That was like kind of how I watched the Brady Bunch.
Mhm.
And I listened to a lot of the Partridge Family on vinyl because my dad and his siblings really liked the Partridge Family. They're a musical family. They were in like the honors choir. We went to the same high school,
Mhm.
like Next Generation honors choir. And so they were like real into the Partridge Family. So I know the songs, but I didn't watch the shows. I'm still going to pick it. I'm still going to pick it because I'm hearing the Brady Bunch theme song in my head and it's killing me. It's like actively killing me. So I'm going to go with the Partridge Family to round out my lineup.
Love it. All right, moving on to Chris. What's going to round out your draft?
Stevie, you had me on the edge of my fucking seat because I was also down to 2 shows for my last pick. They were also The Partridge Family and The Brady Bunch. And and you had said you were picking on hate, so I was delighted to lose one of my last 2 picks to something that you potentially hate. I've gotten everything I've wanted tonight for the most part. This is gonna be the one thing that hurts a little. I think I was going to pick The Partridge Family. I was a young redheaded child. Danny Bonaducci taught me what it meant to be an angry redheaded child. Um, it's okay because I also like stories. And at its heart, the Brady Bunch is a story. It's a story of a man named Brady and so many other folks in and around his very full house. Um, this show, The Brady Bunch, is a big part of my TV viewing history. My mom loved The Brady Bunch. This was something that I could share with her. It was a big part of her childhood. Um, I love Alice. I love a sarcastic member of the family, and so she takes the shape of the housekeeper in this case, not maybe a member of the family per se, but certainly a member of the household, as loved as anybody else there, and so quick with her wit, careful with it too, because she has a place in the hierarchy of this family, but so sly, so clever. Um, this family also taught me what it meant, similar to the Partridge Family, like what a teen heartthrob was, the concept of like a teen heartthrob. I would have said David Cassidy, but we can talk about the Brady family as well. And I've certainly imitated "Oh my nose, oh my nose, oh my nose." I can see the Nick at Night promo cutting that again and again and again
Mhm.
to let you know that Brady Bunch was going to be on the block party summer. So happy to land the plane here, my 5th pick with the Brady Bunch.
Sure,
Right here.
Jan.
Nice.
And it's a show that had a cameo from Davy Jones of the Monkees, in which he played Davy Jones of the Monkees.
Perfect. All right, Maria, how are you rounding out your draft this evening?
Well, since All in the Family stolen from me, let's see. I think I'm gonna have to. There's a lot of good ones on here. I'm torn because I love sort of the classic small town things, and I'm gonna have to go with the Andy Griffin Show. I feel like I wasn't really sure. I didn't even know really I was gonna pick it, so I was sitting here really thinking about it. And, I think of all of the classic TV shows, I probably have seen this the most. Like, I feel like it was
Mhm.
something that may have been one of my mom's favorite kind of show. And I love it. I think it created for me that love of the, like, small town cop having to deal with, like, kind of ridiculous situations, and I think that that's something that I like in a lot of movies now and a lot of comedies. I love that kind of character who's just, and Don Knotts is just amazing, and
Mhm.
his voice, it's iconic, and I don't know, it kind of has that very wholesome Nick at Night feeling that I feel like my lineup is sort of going for, unintentionally, but just sort of rounding it out. And I don't know, it just has some great, the theme song to it is catchy, and the whistle. I remember like I can't whistle to save my life, but I try to whistle that just all the time.
That was on my list too for like a maybe pick, and it's because that's
Mhm.
the reason I learned to whistle. I'm an
Mhm.
extraordinary whistler. But the
Jealous.
reason it says it outside my classroom door. We're supposed to have our hidden talent outside our classroom door, and mine just says that I'm a phenomenal whistler.
I love it.
But that's why I learned to whistle, is because I wanted to whistle that, and I couldn't do it, and my dad had to teach me Yankee Doodle Dandy
Mhm.
and have me just like really hammer Yankee Doodle Dandy until I could work my way up to the Andy Griffith Show. So
Yeah, I don't know how this is gonna play in the edit, Stevie, but I feel like I need you to try it. I don't know how that's gonna sound in a mic, but I feel like I need you to try it. Like, I
to
feel like
whistle?
if it works.
I would love to. You let me know when you want me to do that.
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's see how it
Yes.
comes out.
Okay, hang on.
It did not work out for Stevie. Fortunately, she was able to reach out with this track a few hours later, and folks, let me tell you, Stevie is, in fact, an excellent whistler. And there you have it, folks. I hope you were just as amazed with that whistling as I was. We now return to our podcast in progress, where Neil will regale you with the story of a whistling bird.
Fun fact, Randy, our beloved Aunt Jackie,
Mm.
I think you may remember this. She had a cockatiel named Rudy,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, yeah.
and he whistled the mean Andy Griffith theme song. He could do it.
I remember the bird, but I forgot specifically the Andy Griffith whistling. What a bummer.
Didn't know I wanted a bird until just now.
I love it. All right. I'm down to my last pick. Everything that I felt incredible about for my last pick is gone. So I'm gonna eliminate a couple things. For people who love classic television, I feel like I may be looked down upon and hated for not selecting The Honeymooners as kind of like the original. But I'm trying to picture a block of binge television, and I don't know if this day and age a binge of The Honeymooners in that context is like the right vibe necessarily. So I'm not going to pick The Honeymooners, but obviously it's essential to any of these other shows ever existing. So the two, oh my god.
Oh, he's tortured. He's tortured by this
Yeah,
last
I'm
pick.
torn between, I could do like I'm considering a Stevie sort of like hate pick. Like, I love to watch Leave It to Beaver to hate it, because it crosses the line of being so wholesome that you hate it, and it makes you angry. Yeah, like, I'm really tempted to pick The Jeffersons because it is a good show, and Sherman Hemsley is just an absolute force on that show. Like, I absolutely love him. Admittedly, I love him even more as Mr. Richfield on Dinosaurs uh in the early 90s, but that's such a great show that really belongs. So I that's another one that is crossing my mind. And I also just kind of feel like I want a show that's really stupid in my lineup. Like, I feel like that's what it's missing. I have too many sort of like, I mean, Get Smart is very dumb, but there's also biting satire there. And it can be really clever in its own way. So I feel like I've got to pick one of the dumb ones, which means I'm down to Green Acres or Beverly Hillbillies. Um, and while I loved the Beverly Hillbillies movie in the 90s, the show never quite hit for me when I tried to watch it. Now, theme song wise, yes. Let me tell you all a story about a man named Jed. God, did I just talk myself into it? The Green Acres theme song is also pretty good. Uh, but just like hearing this theme song play in my mind, I'm gonna go with the Beverly Hillbillies because I just need some stupid fun in my lineup, and it's a fun show. And I'm gonna go fire up that '90s movie as soon as we're done recording, so I can watch that again. It's an absolute classic. All right, so there we have it, Beverly Hillbillies.
Well, that's it, Randy. Excellent final pick. And that's it for our first official draft here on Media Lit. I am excited to walk through this one last time. And I really want to hear where everybody's placing their shows sort of down across the week, because this is a block party summer lineup. So we're binging these shows day over day. Let's start with Stevie. What's your lineup roll like?
I really liked what you said about alliteration, but I don't have the consistency in my titles to roll with alliteration, so I'm just going to abandon it completely. And I'm going to go with kind of what I had in mind before the draft system, which before the draft system happened, I had 5 shows that I wanted to have. So 3 of them are still right, and I'm going to keep them in the same spots, and I'm just going to plug in to fill. So Monday is going to be Gilligan's Island. Monday was always going to be Gilligan's Island. And I'm going on like a blue collar, white collar working week where it's like each day you're a different level of tired and shitty. So on Monday, I feel like you need a little like 3-hour tour. You just had your 3-hour tour, you know? And you need that little pick me up, light humor, some slapstick silliness, a movie star to look at, a professor to look at, a Marianne to look at, like the whole deal, right? So I'm giving you Gilligan's Island. You're welcome. Monday. Tuesday, I'm going to give you Mr. Ed. And the reason I'm going to give you Mr. Ed is I always tell my students that Tuesdays are my absolute least favorite day of the week. I think they're the worst because Mondays you can like hype yourself out like it's a mountain to get over. But Tuesdays are like, is this a joke? Is this just Monday again? And so to me, funny talking horse, ridiculous enough to vibe a Tuesday. I'm going to roll with that. I like it. On Wednesday, I'm going to give you the Partridge Family, Hump Day. And I feel like music, like it's going to lighten things up. It's the one that you kind of are like, if we can just get through this, we can just get through this. It's Baby Friday. And for Baby Friday, that's what I call Thursday. For Baby Friday, I'm going to give you Laverne and Shirley because that's going to help get you hyped for Happy Days, right? That gets you in like the spirit, the vibe of what is to come. But it's also like Thirsty Thursday. So if we're going to be working at Shots Brewery, let's give us a Thirsty Thursday with Laverne and Shirley. And then we're going to end on Happy Days because I think that really works with not the rock around the clock, but the Sunday, Monday Happy Days theme song where we go through the whole week and we've ended on a Friday. And also it's just my favorite. So it would be like my like celebratory. It's Friday. Kick off your shoes. Thank God Happy Days is on for 6 episodes in a row.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I love pairing your hate for Tuesdays with your hate for Mr. Ed. Wonderfully reasoned out. Thank you.
I'm sorry to extend the pod further, but Stevie, my 9-year-old son also hates Tuesday. And when he gets off the bus on Tuesdays, like all afternoon, if any like dumb thing happens that he doesn't like, he's just like, it's Tuesday. Like he throws his hands up in the air.
I love that. Yeah, no, I think Tuesdays are the absolute, it's a punishment. Like just get that day out of there.
I love that he's already got like a little recurring bit that he runs. That's great. Really fantastic. I think we can throw it to Maria next. Are you ready to drop your lineup on us?
So let's see. Monday, I'm going to go with the Andy Griffith Show. And that's because I think Mondays are rough. And I think that it doesn't really have high stakes. And it's just sort of nice to just watch and just sort of let Andy do his thing. And, you know, it doesn't expect a lot out of me as a viewer other than to kind of giggle at those silly things. Tuesday, Adam's Family, just because it just feels right to me. I don't know. Something about Tuesday feels like a good night for watching the Adams Family.
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of needing a little bit of that kind of nostalgic boost. Let's see. So I was a little torn on Wednesday and Thursday, and I've crossed out and switched things around a little bit. So I'm gonna say on Wednesday, Hogan's Heroes, and that's because Wednesdays, for me, I think Wednesdays are the worst because it's like right in the middle of the week, and it's like I just feel like by Wednesday, I'm like, oh god, everything is hopeless, and I haven't done anything that I needed to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like Hogan's Heroes is gonna give me that, like, "It's okay, we have hope, we're gonna outsmart everybody," and, know it, and that kind of thing, and a little bit of, kinda, I don't know, silly humor, and then Thursdays, I'm gonna go with Bewitched, because, I don't know, I like Thursdays, Bewitched is my favorite of all of these things, and I don't know, I just
Mm-hmm.
feel like Thursday is just feels like a nice time. You're almost at the weekend, you're tired, and it's kinda quirky and silly, and I don't know, it's fun, and usually I'm annoyed by the world, and I wish that I was a witch at that point and could just wiggle my nose and complete all my tasks in that way, and then Friday, the Dick Van Dyke Show, because I just feel like it's a good
Yeah.
date show, and so, like, I think of
Mm.
Fridays, like, I'm getting old, so I don't always wanna go out and and be around a whole bunch of people, and, so I feel like it's a nice, like, I'm gonna order let's order some pizza and sit and hang out and watch, um, TV and stuff, and so, sort of that's what.
Absolutely love your reasoning. I too despise Wednesdays.
Yeah,
And
they're
so
the
I think that
worst.
yeah. I'll find some alignment with you there as I walk through mine. But first I want to turn down to Neil. Neil, you had some shows in your list that I've never seen. I'm excited to hear your reasoning on why you want to watch them, when you want to watch them. What's going on?
Sure. So Monday, I think I wanted to start with the bona fide classic, the award winner. So for Monday, I'll go with All in the Family. Tuesday, I kind of like what folks are saying here about those Tuesday blues. So
Mhm.
maybe you've come back from work or from school and you're a little bitter about that. So I'm going to go with the first of my two goofy workplace shows. And we're going to come down from Tuesday with Welcome Back, Cotter.
Mhm. Mhm.
On Wednesday, I'm going to take the show that's probably the most star centered and I'll put Sanford and Son there because really that show focuses on the comedic abilities of Red Fox. Now, Thursday had a long time campaign. I believe this was NBC, where we had Must See TV. Must See TV was on Thursday. And I'm just going to go with what I think was the strongest of the shows that I picked. So Taxi goes on Thursday. And then by Friday, you're letting your hair down, you're relaxing, maybe with your favorite beverage or dessert or something like that. And we're going to have the silliest show to lead into the weekend. So I got to go with the Monkeys.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I think that getting silly on Friday afternoon, getting ready for the weekend is a good call. Randy, take us through your week, bud.
All right. This past weekend I brought my kids to see the Garfield movie, which was pretty disappointing, but I do love Garfield in other forms.
He called it
Yes.
soulless. He called the film soulless, just to be clear about how much he didn't like it.
It's true. I did. I did call it soulless. The reason I bring it up, though, it actually comes back to the Tuesday bit. Garfield was giving some of his classic "I hate Mondays" energy, and my son was sitting next to me and like whispering to me, he's like, "No, Tuesday. I hate Tuesday," because it's such a bit. But I am an "I hate Mondays" guy. I don't have the same hatred for Tuesday as Ben. But I'm gonna go with the Bob Newhart show on Mondays because Bob Newhart is the embodiment of that Monday energy. If I've just come home from a really annoying meeting, we tend to have like our faculty meetings on Mondays. I've got this whole week ahead of me. If I can watch Bob Newhart like roll his eyes and be sarcastic with people who are not listening to him, not hearing him, I think that's going to be soothing for me personally. So that's my Monday show. That being said, I do think Tuesday, you do have a lot of the week ahead of you. You're tired, you're exhausted, you don't want to think too hard. So Tuesday is going to be the Beverly Hillbillies. We can settle down for a fun theme song. We can see some goofy antics. If I'm not too tired, I can talk about, whatever hasn't aged well, from the show, but we're going to have a good time. Wednesday, we are going to move on to the Mary Tyler Moore show. I absolutely love this show, and it's similar to my reasoning about Monday, but like you're in it, you're in the work week, you're feeling the stress and the strain of the week, what still needs to get done, what events are coming up, and just to see Mary and the gang just trying to get through a day, I think I would find it soothing because they're going to get through it to the end. You're going to see that wish fulfillment sort of happen on screen. On Thursday, I'm going to hit us with The Odd Couple. Because it's fun. We're nearing the end of the week. We're having a good time. I know that's a night where I start to realize I'm going to be cleaning all day the next day if I expect to like have any sort of like company or social event going on. So that little reminder from Felix to be tidying up the house and staying on top of things when you're really just tempted to sit down and take a break will be, I think, a nice lived-in experience. Then I'm gonna go with my favorite, Get Smart, on Fridays. I don't know that I'd necessarily call it a date show, but it does sound like a great show. Just kick back, relax, eat a slice of pizza, laugh at some dumb jokes. If you're in good company, you can talk about those deeper satirical, intellectual vibes, if you so desire, or you can just have fun with it. So that is my lineup. Chris, you knew this right off the bat. You even pitched the idea of having us pick our day as we picked our shows. And I got too scared and backed away from it. So that's why I'm really happy you are presenting your order last. I left Mary Mondays off the table. I could have done it. I didn't do it. Neil left Monkey Mondays off the table. I suspect we're going to get some alliteration from you. And I think that's a great way to end.
You are going to get the alliteration from me, Randy, and but much to my chagrin, I'm with you, Stevie. I had hoped to make my whole week that way. We're not that blessed with our choices here to have enough days that start with T's and W's to align with our shows. So it's only here, but I do get the double alliteration. We're going with Mork and Mindy Mondays. That just makes you want to watch, right? Everybody's tuning in for Mork and Mindy Mondays. What are you going to talk about on Tuesday if you didn't watch Mork and Mindy Mondays? So yeah, that starts off my week, but that is the end of the alliteration. And like you all, I was thinking a lot about the rhythms of the working week and how do we feel and how do we rely on our programming to help us get through? Is it pure inspiration we need, like Hogan's Heroes on a Wednesday? And so I don't despise Tuesday. I think on Tuesday, you're just getting warmed up. I got through Monday. Thank God we survived. And on Tuesday, I'm kind of vibing on the week. I'm getting some stuff done. I still got some of my energies in reserve. And so I can handle the Brady Bunch on Tuesday night. I can handle 6 siblings in a crazy household. And I think too, the Brady Bunch, it's in the house a lot. It's around the house. It has the rhythms of a day in the life of an American family. So it feels appropriate for that start of the week, still feeling good about your energy, a little hopeful for what's to come. But on Wednesday, we are dragging. We are sagging. On Wednesday, we need a pick-me-up. And so I've got to turn to my gal, Lucy. It's I Love Lucy on Wednesdays. I'm not a baseball guy, not so much, but I do know that batting third, you need somebody who's going to produce some offense. You need somebody who's going to put the bat on the ball, and Lucy never misses. Doesn't matter what episode. We can do a whole week of Lucy blocks, and every episode's going to be a banger. So I know I can rely on Lucy to get me through Wednesday. We're okay. Like the rest of you, I remember Thirsty Thursday or two. I don't participate in Thirsty Thursdays so much anymore, but it does feel like more of an active social night maybe than even Friday. And so this is where I slotted in Jeannie. This is where our like sexier 60s swinging vibe is gonna land. If I'm gonna spend Thursday night anywhere, let it be in the Jeannie's Lamp Lounge. leaving me with Friday, where much like Neil, I was feeling the silly vibes. I want to get shed the weight of the week, just forget about the stress and the nonsense. I made it through. I'm sitting down, I'm relaxing. Give me the Munsters on Friday. Let me yuck it up with Herman and the gang. Get me in the mood for the weekend. I can go out again on Saturday night, but Friday night I'm staying in. I'm having fun on Friday with the Munsters.
Beautiful, Chris. I absolutely loved your reasoning. Those thirsty Thursdays in the Genie's Bottle Lounge sound like a great time in particular. All right. I've got to thank our panel. We just completed our largest episode of Media Lit to date. We did a full panel, full draft. It went long, but I think it could have easily gone another hour. So I'm really impressed with all of us, our insights, and also the moments where we showed some restraint. So we just want to close things out, and I want to check in with each of our guests. So Neil, it was great having you back again tonight. Thank you for a great draft. Uh, are there any social media connections you want to share with folks, or any projects you want to talk about?
Well, I am one of those few holdouts. I am really not on the socials. I don't do tweets on Twitter. I don't do excretions on X. And I don't really have a following. Not yet, anyway. Maybe I have a young cousin somewhere who could help me with that. Who knows? Um, But as far as projects go, yeah, you alluded to the fact that I like to dabble in playwriting. So I did just finish the first draft of what hopefully will be a full length play. And I'm ready to take the axe to it and kill some darlings and hopefully make it read and sound a whole lot better. I'm not going to say too much right now, but my first play had an animal theme, and this one also largely does have an animal theme. So I will definitely share more when I have something semi-presentable.
I cannot wait. Speaking of writing, Maria, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Really loved your entire lineup. Is there anywhere you want folks to reach out to you, and or any projects or work you want to talk about?
Well, I do have a Twitter if people want to follow me on there. I post a lot of sad girl poems, because that's just the kind of Twitter girl I am. So if you want to read some of my sad girl Twitter poetry, and other random stuff, I mean, I keep calling it Twitter, but now it's kind of garbage now. But I still post on there a lot about Fallout. So you can find me pretty much across social medias at Dread and Donuts. And because it's my life motto is I have a lot of dread and I love donuts. And I'm currently I've been ghostwriting, so I've had a lot of books not in my name published. So I'm currently trying to query a novel that I've been working on for a really long time. It's sort of a science fantasy grimdark kind of mix, and so hoping for good things with that. I'm assembling hopefully we'll soon self-publish a poetry chapbook about grief, reflections to my mom passing away 3 years ago. And I'm also in the super focus. I'm starting to draft a new novel about the Depression. I recently reread The Grapes of Wrath, and I was really a story just sort of came out of that, inspired by Steinbeck. And so I've been writing a lot of genre fiction, and so I'm trying to prove that I could write a literary piece of fiction.
Love it.
Thank you. So those sort of things are going on right now for me.
I have no idea how I was not following you on Twitter, but I'm now following you on Twitter. So there we go.
Awesome.
Stevie, is there anywhere you would like people to reach you on social media, and or any other work or projects you want to talk about?
I guess if you want to follow me on social media, I've got a sad girl poetry Instagram. That is Stevie Miles, like the distance, words. So Stevie Miles Words is where I post my sad girl poetry. And I live in Salinas, California, which is where John Steinbeck is from. and you can like do this
Mm.
John Steinbeck tour and stuff. I'm sorry, Maria just made me think of that. I think Maria should come visit me.
Oh, yeah, it seems like we can start our podcast on Gilligan's Island.
Let's do it.
Right.
All right. That brings us down to your hosts. All right. Chris, where can people find you on social media?
When I'm not podcasting or dadding, I'm also an actor and a voice actor. I do some things on the side. You can find me doing all of those things, mostly dadding. On Instagram, I am Chris_Ingersoll. That's Chris spelled like Kringle.
All right. And I'm your host, Randy Elaine. You can find me on Twitter at Mr_Elaine. You can find some of my entertainment writing over at the Pop Break. It's lately a lot of Doctor Who stuff. And you can also find my other podcast, Every Pod You Cast, where we are looking at the entire discography of the Police. Our final episode airs in July, but worry not, because we will be moving on to Black Sabbath for some more music discussion. All right, folks. Thanks for sitting through this one with us. I hope you had as much fun as we did. And can't wait to hear what you think of our programming vlogs. Have a great night.